Okay, take two. So just to recap, I said we're absolutely delighted for this month to be hosted by iZetto, who've very kindly looked after us tonight and opened up their beautiful offices here in Edinburgh. So before I go on to talk about firstly Startup Grind and then to introduce our fantastic speaker, can I just get a little bit of a show of hands, because I see some familiar faces and some new faces. So who's been along to one of our events before? Yeah. Excellent, and we didn't scare you off and you came back again, so that's really good. And some new faces. Yep. So first time here. That's fantastic. Yay. So just to recap and so everyone's on the same page. For those of you that don't know, Startup Grind is a global community for entrepreneurs, and the actual network is now 400 cities wide across the world in over 150 countries and over. Yeah, I think that's right. But we've got our map there, with all the different countries around the world. So it's a truly global community. Here in Scotland, we'll be running in Edinburgh for nearly 4 years now, which we're really proud of. We run an event every month, and what we enjoy is the role model learning opportunity from entrepreneurs that come along and really openly and candidly share their stories. And it's as you probably know if you have been before, a very informal setup that we have. So I'll be interviewing, I'll be hosting, and I've got questions for Kai. But what I'm really keen on is that if people have a question or they want to ask something, this is a conversation. So if you want to ask a question, it's not too formal that you have to wait to the end. Pop your hand up and join in, and I'll bring you into the discussion. And what I'll say as well, we're very kindly being filmed tonight by Product Forge, so they're live streaming that. So thank you so much, Alan. And we're very social, so we're on Twitter at Startup Grind SEO. So please join the conversation online as well, and get people talking, because we want to spread the word. But without further ado, enough of me, and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to introduce our speaker tonight. So Kai is a business coach with Shirlaw's Coaching. She with Shirlaw's Group. And she works with entrepreneurs to help them build and scale their business. And she's very experienced with change, and knows that building a business and being an entrepreneur can sometimes be quite a lonely journey, as probably quite a few of us here know as well. And she works with businesses on that. She previously had a very successful business career herself, spent over 10 years as managing director of Search in the UK. Grew that up, and I was fascinated to read that they went under your leadership from 170 to 600 staff in the UK. So clearly you know a lot about building and growing teams and scaling up. So I think we're going to pick your brain on that and many other things tonight. But Kai Murray, everyone.
Hello.
So Kai, just to start off with, can you tell us a bit about your own background? Growing up, were you surrounded by entrepreneurial role models in your family, or?
Not really. My father was self-employed, so I'm sure that kind of gave me the idea that you could do something for yourself. But I grew up in Edinburgh, very working class background, and the eldest of 5, so I got to be a leader very early on in my life. And yeah, as I say, my father worked for himself, so I kind of thought that was a good thing to do.
Yep.
And I think when you've seen somebody else do it, you think,
yep,
well, it's easy, he can do it, I can do it.
And so you saw that as somebody to learn from. And what about education wise? What did you do?
Okay, so where did I start off education-wise? Okay, so my first degree was in human movement studies, and basically that's just so that you can add a teaching qualification to it and teach PE. So I started off in life as a PE teacher, and lasted 9 whole months doing that.
And what about that was not for you?
It just didn't feel like a job. It was just like, it just felt like I was playing sport every day, and that's probably why I wanted to do it, because I really enjoyed playing sport, and I thought, this is a way to continue doing that. But no, it just didn't feel right to me. I was covering a maternity leave, and quite a lot of the girls that I was at uni with were all a bit disappointed, because I got the first job when we came out of uni, and then when they offered me it, because the person wasn't coming back, I kind of went, I don't think this is for me. I think I want to do business.
Okay.
So yeah.
So were you quite sporty and active growing up? It's been something
that was a long
you've
time
always...
ago, though. Yeah.
Okay, and so that sounds like a bit of a pivot quite early on, so 9 months in, and you chose to move on from the PE. So what did you choose to do after that, and where did you go?
Yeah, I wish I could say all these things were planned, but what happened next was one of the other girls I was at university with turned up one day to meet me for lunch in a really nice car, and she said, "Oh, I'm working for a pharmaceutical company, and I get..." Actually, what she was being paid was twice as much as I was earning as a teacher.
Okay.
And as I say, she got this company car, and I said, "Well, what do you have to do?" She says, "Well, you have to sell drugs." I was like, "Okay."
Caveat that.
Yeah, I just thought, why not? It's business,
Okay.
But luckily, I didn't have to sell drugs. I managed to get a job with a company that sold detectors for blood sugar for diabetics.
Okay.
So I didn't even have to go and see a GP. I got to go into hospitals.
Okay.
So that was my first kind of experience in business, I suppose, and I covered the whole of Scotland. And every day I would, get into my car and go off to a hospital and talk to all these doctors about diabetics, and it was great fun.
And I would say for any of us that are building or growing a business, building your sales skills is absolutely key. So what do you think are the key things that people need to be successful in sales?
Good at bullshit. It was a really, really good start for me because initially I found it quite intimidating. I can't even remember what age I was, maybe about 23, 24 then. And, going into hospitals and speaking to, consultants that I really looked up to and thought were really bright, was tough to begin with. But actually, once you get going, you realise that, we're all the same. And as long as you can get on with people and chat to people, then, they'll listen to you and hopefully sign those checks and buy the products. And the product, I was lucky. The product was a really good product, so it wasn't difficult. Yeah, it wasn't difficult to sell. We had competitors, but I truly believed our product was better. So, I think it was an excellent background for going into business later, because you kind of learn the hard way.
Yeah. Okay. And how did you get into the recruitment space?
So the company that got me that job, I went back 2 years later and I said, "Look at my sales figures. Haven't I done well? What do I get to do next?"
Yeah.
And they said, "Well, why don't you come and work for us?" And I was like, I never thought of recruitment. I didn't really know what it meant. But it did mean not having to drive around Scotland every day. I would kind of go into a nice little office. So I fell into it really. And had the next 7 years with a really specialist recruitment company who only worked with pharmaceutical companies.
And obviously you started to build a network in that space as well. So
but all my clients were in London.
Okay.
So but we had great fun there. It was when the farm industry was really growing, so we got huge opportunities. It wasn't kind of one-off jobs. We would do things like, I remember winning a contract with Glaxo, and they said, right, we need a new sales force. So they needed 100 people, and after that 100 people, they needed another 600 people for 3 other sales forces. So that was just brilliant experience.
And so did you go in a delivery function initially? Were you?
Yeah, I initially, and then once we got to the big contract stuff, I started to project manage.
Okay. Yeah.
So we had a number of people throughout the country, doing the interviews, if you like, and it was just making sure that you got everybody through the process and to an assessment centre before the training courses started. Fantastic.
And how did you build your way up to your first exec level job, or, senior?
I quite like selling, and I think that selling a product's one thing, but I was much better at selling a service.
Okay.
And I don't know why, I just found it easier to sell the service, and therefore, and I loved what I was doing because, well, there's a couple of recruiters in the room, they'll know this, you get to ask people all sorts of questions, and I'm quite nosy. So, I liked doing what I was doing, and at the end of the day, people were very happy to come and see you, and especially when they got the job, used to, phone you up and write you letters and say really nice things, like, thanks for helping me with my career. So I didn't really find it difficult, and we grew that business really dramatically because it was an Edinburgh-based business, and we ended up with most of the contracts for the big pharma companies in London. Yeah. And so I ended up on the board when I was 27.
Oh, fantastic.
And didn't quite know what I was doing, and certainly didn't know how to read a P&L, but I was called the sales director, so, I just turned up and I was the sales director.
And was there any, sorry, this is really fascinating, but was there anyone else on the board that was your age?
No.
And what was the gender makeup of that board?
There was another female, and then there was 3 guys. There was a great guy that some of you might know. Oh my God, I've just forgotten his name. I'll come back to it in a minute. He's a lawyer, and he's more than a lawyer in Edinburgh, a very senior guy in Edinburgh, and he was really good fun.
Okay.
But no, I was the youngest, and do you know, I think they put me on the board to keep me in the business. I don't think they put me on the board because they thought they needed me to be a board member, if I'm absolutely honest.
So they really invested in developing you, then it sounds like.
I think they invested in keeping me in the business.
Okay. Okay.
I can't remember any training courses. Having said that, we did drive great cars and earn lots of money, and we had fun. So it was a good experience.
Yeah. Okay. And did you move from there to Search, or was there any moves in between?
I took a year out to do my MBA.
Okay.
And that was just brilliant, because my first degree, I really played at it. I was kind of like most people as students, you go and you have a good time, but you get your degree. The second time round, it wasn't like that, because it was like, oh my God, this is quite hard. Like the first economics class I went to, I thought, what the hell am I doing here? I need to get out of here. But yeah, I had a brilliant year, met some really good friends, and I did it at Edinburgh. And the great thing about the Edinburgh course at that time is it was it still is, I think, an international course. Okay. So there was only like 3 of us from Scotland on the course, and there was 120 people on the course. So it was just, it was fantastic being a student again, aged what, I think it was 30, 31. But yeah, I had to work hard. It wasn't easy for me.
And I guess it would be, with such a diverse peer group there, you'd be learning from that group, as well as from the programme.
If anybody in the room's gone through the MBA, they'll know that you get a lot of project work, and you don't complete that project or case study on your own. You complete it with a group of people. So really interesting to work with different nationalities in situations, and find out who the lazy ones are and find out who the really smart ones are, and then sell the idea that you should be in their group.
Yeah.
It was a good year.
And you learn, I guess, a little bit. That's almost about building teams again, isn't it? As well.
Yeah. I think I learnt more about building teams when I was actually helping pharmaceutical companies build their teams.
Okay.
I had to keep my head down on my MBA, because I can't fail at things. I'm just not very good at failing, and I thought if I don't keep my head down, I am going to fail. Definitely economics, definitely accountancy, and probably statistics as well. What does that tell you about me? Not very good with numbers.
But I always really admire people that look for the things that they want to grow in and that they find hard, and they push at that. And clearly you knew that was where you wanted to upskill yourself and learn. I
think what it did for me is it gave me the confidence to do something bigger. Yeah. Because I read an article that said not many women are doing MBAs. Now, you can tell by my age, this was a long time ago. So I thought, oh, that's a good thing to do. So again, it wasn't part of the master plan. And I knew I'd be able to get a job afterwards, but I never thought I'd be running a business afterwards. So I think what it did is, in my previous business, where I'd go to these board meetings and just tell them about all the new companies we'd got on board and how much money we'd made and whatever, I didn't really get involved. I didn't understand the P&Ls. I didn't understand the balance sheets. So what it helped me with was, I never got great at that stuff, but I got enough knowledge to be able to ask the right questions.
And talk credibly.
Yeah.
And get under the bonnet of that stuff as well.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. And so from there, so you had your MBA under your belt, and you've done that. Is that when you moved on to Search?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I originally joined Search as an employee, so I didn't go to them for a job in Search. I went because of a customer service director role at Sky. I remember seeing this and thinking, I'm good at customer service, I could do this. So yeah, they got me along falsely by saying, come and have an interview. And then when I got there, and the guy that owned it at the time said to me, well, actually, I'm not interviewing for this job. You wouldn't like this job, but what I'd like you to do is come and work for us.
Okay.
So I was quite amazed, actually, because it was quite compared to, you know, the Royce team that I was in when we did pharma, it was quite a small, very elite team. And then suddenly, you know, I was in Glasgow in their offices, and there was actually quite a lot of people doing lots of different types of recruitment, and I'd never even heard of these people. So, yeah, he did talk me into it, but he talked me into it by not letting me see the Edinburgh office.
Okay.
And that's what he wanted me to run.
So what was he hiding?
Oh my God. You should have seen this place, honestly. It was like a hovel down some back street at the back of Rose Street. I mean, it was horrible. And most people in there didn't like what they were doing. The Glasgow office was really successful because the original owners went in there every day. But the Edinburgh office was like doing next to nothing, and everybody was unhappy, and it was just a mess.
So it's kind of a turnaround project in a way.
Well, I got to practice my MBA. And I just keep thinking that. I kept thinking, I've got the tools, I can do this. Yeah. But yeah, that was quite tough, actually. I didn't think I'd last 6 months there.
Okay.
But again, I said earlier, I really don't like feelings, so I kept saying to myself, you can only go when you've made a success.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, and then, you know.
And you clearly lasted the 6 months. And then
a lot more.
And I'd written down, so it was over 10 years that you were
yeah.
there, and it reads that it scaled massively in that time. So can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so there was all sorts of changes during that time. So I became MD quite quickly after that of the 3 Scottish offices, and we started to pitch for much bigger pieces of business in the south, even without having the offices in the south. And we started to pick up some really nice contracts. And we did quite a lot of virtual recruitment at that stage. And through that, we went from, so I joined a company, they were turning over about 15 million, and we grew that quite quickly to 40 with some of this amazing work we got. And then we started to think, right, well, we probably need to get offices in different locations. But the 2 original owners said, well, do you know what, we want to realise our investment. And, you know, one of them wanted to go off and drive racing cars and things like that. And I'm like, okay then. So they said, I think we might sell the business. So anyway, they quietly, I'm not sure how quietly you do these things, put the business up for sale, and 3i got involved. Does anybody remember 3i? You'd have to be over 40 to remember them. Yeah. So glad there's people in the room.
We've had speakers here talk about them as well.
So 3i got involved with a group of guys who were at that point running the European part of Kelly Services, which is a big American company. And they clearly needed cash to buy the business, so 3i were going to back them. And I met the guys from 3i, and I know that they get some bad press, but we had a really good relationship with them, and I loved them because they said, Kai, why don't you buy in as well? And I was like, well, I didn't even know I could do that. I thought what I'd do is hopefully stay the MD, and if I liked these people, you know, we'd carry on. And if I didn't like them, I'd just go and do something else. So eventually they negotiated for me a share in the business, said, have you got any money? I said, no. They said, right, here's the bank. Go talk to them. And that all seemed really, really quite easy. And, you know, so suddenly I went from being, I was the managing director of what I saw as a very successful business to being, you know, one of the shareholders.
Yep.
So, yeah, and again, I'm not smart enough to ask the difficult questions. So, you know, you just go for it. You just think, it's an opportunity, why not?
And so, you know, what we hear from a lot of our speakers is that, I guess, that openness and willingness to take a risk. And what would you say it is about you that made you open to do that? Because it's a differentiator, isn't it?
In all honesty, I think I did it because I knew it was a good business. You know, I was in the business, I knew how successful it was, I knew we had some great people, so it was like, wow, imagine getting a chunk of this.
So it's a very considered risk in that.
Yeah, I didn't consider it for long, but I did know it was a good business. I thought, you know, it's a good business, why not? I mean, the guys that were buying in, I met twice before we did the deal.
Okay.
And there was going to be 3 of them and me. So
they're your new business partners.
It was a risk in terms of the people I was, you know, getting into business with.
Okay.
But yeah, I loved the business. I thought we could scale it even more, so I went for it.
Fantastic. And then you expanded out wider in the UK.
Yeah, so at that point, so we're turning over 40 million. We've got business in the south, but we've not got sites in the south. And we started opening these super sites. So each site we opened, we were putting in 27 people I'm not quite sure why it was 27.
That's quite a specific number.
Yeah, but what we were trying to do is, at that point, we were quite unusual in terms of our offering. So in Scotland, we had, for example, big bank contracts, and we wouldn't just put in their lawyers and their accountants, but we'd put their admin staff in as well. So we thought, let's take that concept south, because at that point there weren't many businesses that did that.
So you were all the functions.
Yeah, so you had to start with a certain number of people, and that meant you had to get quite large sites as well.
And it's a big upfront investment to do that.
Yeah, and we just paid the 2 previous owners 24 million for the business. So that was a big lesson, but it took me about 5 years to work out that we paid too much. And most of it was 3i's money, let's face it. So, but yeah, we expanded, and we went from 3 Scottish offices to eventually, before I exited, we had 16 sites in the UK.
Wow. So it's a big brand by that point as well. Yeah,
and it was really quite exciting being a Scottish company moving south. You know, that made us feel quite proud of ourselves. There were challenges though, and anybody here that's even taken a second office will know this, that trying to retain the culture that you've got in the original business as you expand, especially when some of these sites are 500 miles away, that was one of the biggest challenges we had.
And can you share any stories from that, or any challenges that you had?
She's asking me this because she was at this talk I did, and I shared one of these particular challenges. So yeah, I mean, lots of brilliant stories and brilliant people, but it's not easy. And I was on my ski holiday. And I always come back from ski holidays with lots of ideas and, raring to go. And so I bounce into the office at 7:30 thinking, sort out the emails and whatever, and, get ready to go. And one of my directors, who was running the construction side of our business, came into the office. And Ronnie sat down and asked me about my holiday, and then said, I'm going to leave the business. And clearly I was disappointed, but I said, tell me more. And so he said, well, I'm a very small fish here, and last year you told me that I wasn't next in line for a directorship, so I found a directorship in a smaller company. So it was kind of fair why he was moving on. So I said, is there anything we can do? He said, no, I want the opportunity. I was like, okay then, not the best thing to come back to, but we'll have to deal with this. Anyway, before he left my room, he went into his jacket pocket and pulled out 9 other envelopes. And these were the resignations of his team. So he wasn't going on his own. He was taking everybody with him, apart from the guy who was on holiday and about to retire the next year. I won't tell you what went through my mind or the words I wanted to call him at that stage. But thankfully I'd been on holiday, because actually that was one of the toughest things I've ever had to deal with, because those of you that know anything about recruitment businesses, as most recruitment businesses, when people leave, you get them on garden leave as soon as possible and out of the office, because they'll just take lots of information that you don't want them to take. Well, these guys, whilst I'd been on holiday, had, I think it's called zip filed, I'm not very technical, everything. They had every contract, every candidate, the lot. So, it was a difficult situation. But the kind of reason for telling this story isn't so much I've had to deal with difficult things. It's more to describe what happened next, when I took the board of directors in and said, okay, this is what's happened. Some of them had worked with this guy for 10 years. They were good friends, So I was thinking, oh, they're all going to be depressed now, what am I going to do about that? And anyway, we sat there for about 2 hours making a plan, and it was an absolutely amazing couple of days, because one of my best memories is of somebody called Mandy Bell, who worked for me that time running the legal team. And Mandy was very jolly hockey sticks. And I remember driving home at about 9 o'clock at night, and I get this phone call from Mandy saying, that's it, Kai, I've delivered 20 hard hats so the guys can start tomorrow. So it's kind of like, for me, it was just, oh my God, these people are like getting us through this. I couldn't have done it on my own, and everybody just pulled their weight, got on with it. And what I've always said is, if you look after your team, they will look after your business. And that was when I really learnt that lesson, because I didn't feel alone. I didn't feel like we were going to fall apart. We lost a few of our contracts, but eventually quite a few of the team asked to come back, actually. Didn't take them all. Yeah.
But so I heard Cry talk about this at another event that I was at, and I was just really inspired. And what I enjoyed was how open you were about that, because I think we all know people that are starting building their businesses as well. It's not easy all the way, and it's not like that. But I think, I mean, would you agree that resilience is a trait that?
Absolutely. I mean, it's the one trait that I look for all the time. And you know, people have probably thought I've been stupid rather than resilient at times, but, you know, I've always kept going. And I think you have to. I mean, when that happened to me, there's no doubt when I went home that night, it was like covers over the head. I do not want to get up tomorrow and have to face this. But you just do it. And it was easier to do because I had all these amazing people around me kind of getting stuck in there. And I just knew then. I just knew that we were going to fly, because I thought suddenly my business heads, if you like, were running the business for me. I wasn't running it anymore.
And that shows that you've built a team that have stepped up.
Yeah, it's one of the things I'm really proud of, actually, because a number of those guys now have their own businesses.
Fantastic.
And businesses that are doing really well.
And we're going to move on a bit and talk about what you're doing now, because now you're with Charlotte's group and you do a lot of coaching and mentoring, as I understand it, with entrepreneurs. So what types of challenges do you support them or take them through?
It's all very different. With Charlotte's, we have tools that we take into businesses. So it's not your traditional coaching firm where you know, you need to be around forever. You can take the tools in, teach the businesses those tools so that they can use them for themselves. So it really depends, but a lot of the time, the stage that I was going to say I get them at, or I attract them at, maybe engage, yeah, is kind of that between 2 and 20 million, where some of them are stuck because they just don't know how to get to the next stage and they need different skills to get to the next stage. Or it could just be none of them are failing businesses. And that's really important I say that. They're all businesses that are maybe doing well but not as well as they'd like to, or they're doing well and I sometimes get challenges on boards where people are just not gelling anymore. You know, that kind of marriage thing, you go into business with people and then all of a sudden it's like, I don't want to be married to this person anymore. And sometimes that's 8 people all in a room together. So yeah, lots of different types of things. But, you know, it's great to have the tools and to have the experience to be able to say, you know, I've gone through some of this and honestly we'll get through it. We'll get through it, you know, because, you know, everything passes.
And what led you to want to move into that space from running the business that you were doing before?
So when I exited the business, I finally got to go to Brazil, which is where my husband was working. And we had a fabulous time in Brazil over Christmas and New Year, and I was just exhausted after the exit. And I didn't quite know what to do. I was one of those people who'd stupidly not planned what to do next. And I was getting some cash, so I didn't have to do something straight away. But within 3 days of getting home, Keith, my husband, said to me, "Okay, you have to get a job or I'm leaving you." I was like, right. And I was just climbing the walls. I'd been so busy for so many years, I just didn't know what to do with myself. So the first thing I did, actually, was a friend that I'd been on the MBA with, the lovely Evelyn, and I were in the pub one night on our second bottle of wine, and Evelyn was saying, "Right, Kai, I need to do something because I've got 2 young boys." She was the finance director with the Bank of Scotland at that point, and she said, "I can take 5 years out and I want to spend some time with my boys, but what I don't want to do is not do anything." And I said, "Well, I've got to do something. What can we do?" So we set up a website. And we set up a website selling, I thought, really nice gifts, because at that point we felt that there wasn't very many websites with nice gifts on them. There was lots of tacky gift websites. So for 6 months we worked with a web development company, and we went off to Frankfurt and Milan and went shopping, which was really lovely.
It's great.
I mean, it was just, honestly, it's just what I needed after the exit experience. But we got the website up and running, and we, within 8 months, actually started to make some money. But very quickly, I got bored again, because once it was up and running and once it was ticking over, it was like, well, I don't really need to do anything now. And Evelyn at that point was still spending time at home with her boys, so she said, I'll take it on. I'd done some work with friends of mine who'd said, you know, can you come into the business and have a look and see what you think? You've scaled, you know, what could we do? And I'd really enjoyed that, but what I felt was I struggled to help them because I didn't quite know how to transfer the knowledge. So that's when I thought, well, actually, maybe I need to be taught how to do that. Okay. So that's when I started looking for business coaching companies.
Okay.
And I found Shirlow's. It's just another one of those stories where I'd met some young girls at an event like this, and business wasn't a very good place. I met them 6 months later, and they were just super hyped and doing really well. And I said, what's changed? And they're going, we've got a business coach. What's his name? Fergus King. I'm like, I need to meet him. And Fergus was with Shirlow's, so that's how I joined Shirlow's.
Okay. And what would you say are the qualities when you see entrepreneurs that are able to grow and scale with the business? Have you got any tips or advice? What makes an entrepreneur successful as a leader?
You just need to look around this room. I think that there's lots of different types of entrepreneurs. I would never have classified myself as that, and I used to probably think I was much more of an entrepreneur. You know, I moved into a business and then helped that business grow. So I think there's you know, entrepreneurs come in all shapes and sizes. Yeah. I think what I notice with the companies I work with that do really well are they're very resilient and they are very people orientated. Okay. And one of the things that they all do is implement. Okay. Because the people that you work with and you think nothing's changing, nothing's moving, it's too much chat, you know, too much planning and not actually doing. Okay. And you know, it's not as easy as that. You actually have to implement things to make a change in your business. Yeah. So is that helpful?
I think it is helpful. Yeah, to me, absolutely. I'm learning lots. And so I'd like to, you obviously, you know, in what you do now and in your previous career as well, you've obviously got to see so many businesses in Scotland and in the wider space as well. What do you think about this space for entrepreneurship in Scotland and as a place to build and grow a business? What do you think are the opportunities? What do you think might be some of the challenges here? Is there anything you can share on that? Challenges.
I think not just for entrepreneurs, but for any business at the moment, you know, it's really hard to find talent. Yeah. And, you know, there's all sorts of things happening, you know, Brexit, etc., which may remove some of that talent from the pot. When I speak to people who say, you know, we can't find the right people, I refer back to what we did, because, you know, we didn't always attract the best out there. You know, at first people were like, we're not joining you guys, you know, you're not our sort of business. So it took quite a while to convince people, and I think that's why we started growing our own, and we created all our own training courses so that we could bring people through the business. But I do think, you know, talent's tight. But what I also say to people at the moment is be careful with who's front-ending your recruitment, because I think talent attracts talent. Yeah. And if you've got somebody who's not that enthusiastic about your business or can't really sell your business to them, then, you know, you're not going to get people coming into the business. I personally don't, I mean, there's always things that come up, and in the recruitment world there was always changes in employment law that you think, oh my God, my business is going to go under because I'm going to have to employ every temp we've got. You know, we had 6,000 temps at one point. But you just overcome it. So for me, it's that resilience to say, you know, you can always solve a problem. Yeah, and
like a solution-focused approach.
Yeah, and not thinking I'll solve it today, but, you know, it'll take time. But I don't think there's many things that a really energetic, focused individual can't get themselves through. Okay. Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. It's really helpful. You know, I mentioned earlier on.
Somebody's got a question over here.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you. Yeah, please ask.
This question, I think you touched on it there, but it's like a mantra almost gets repeated. There's a lack of talent. There isn't enough talent. But people, it's kind of what people are looking for. They're looking for people like, hi, I'm the talent. or are you looking for people who have the qualities to learn? And I think often people are looking with a closed mind and not seeing like what people are actually capable of potentially.
Absolutely. I was with a building surveying company the other day there, and a fantastic group of guys, and I say guys because most of them were guys, and what they were saying, I was like, I really like your culture, the energy in here is just fantastic. And what they were saying is, you know, there's lots of surveyors out there and we could recruit those surveyors, but we always look for that kind of attitudinal fit. And I was like, that's it. I always go for attitude before skills, because you can teach skills, but you know, if somebody comes in with the right attitude, they create their own energy. So, you know, I'm with you on that. I'm not saying it's not easy to find certain skills at the moment. There are obviously shortages, but, you know, there are talented people out there. And, you know, I personally think some of the most talented people I've met, even when we were in the south with the business, people running businesses were Scottish guys that, you know, had moved south. So there's something about us Scots, and sorry if you're not Scottish in the room, but I'm just going to push the Scots, but there's something about us that are just kind of that determination and that hard work ethic thing. I don't know what it is, but we get there. Don't talk about sport though.
Would you say enough of our talent stays in Scotland though?
That worries me sometimes, you know, that the talent does move, but I don't know if it was my type of business. We never lost talent out with Scotland.
Okay.
But other people with other types of businesses may have that. I think, you know, when you want to retain people, you have to. I learned something quite early on, which was, you know, let's just say an employee is very money motivated. Well, recruitment was a good industry to be in because they could earn quite a lot of money if they were good at it. But what I learned very quickly was, you know, that person might be money motivated, but this person isn't. There's something, you know, and so there's 4 or 5 things that I think you need to work out what really turns people on. And if they're talented, you want to deliver that to them. So, you know, a lot of our team were really into celebrating success. I mean, they really bonded by doing things like that. And others were keen to progress in the business. And, you know, one of my proudest things is that I think each Christmas we used to do this Christmas party, and there was an awards. And every year it got bigger and bigger and bigger until we were giving away really sexy holidays. And so people would get up on stage and, you know, be congratulated for what they'd achieved. And what I was always really delighted at is that between 70 to 80% of those award winners, and it wasn't just for sales, it was across the business, were all homegrown.
Fantastic.
You know, we developed them ourselves. And that's not to say that you don't sometimes need to bring talent in from outside, but I think, you know, if you focus on people, and we had to create our own training courses.
So was that like a graduate programme, or was it an entry
graduate?
level?
You know, at the end of the day, for me, there's lots of people in recruitment who are not graduates and do very well in it.
Okay.
We used to call it a graduate assessment centre, and then we dropped that because if you call it a graduate assessment centre, then you only attract graduates. But yeah, we eventually got our what we called our trainees. Once they were in for 2 years, we got them to run these centres and get them to attract new people in, because they were able to share with them.
Well, as a role model, you know, look where I've
look what I've done, look what I've achieved. Yeah. You know, here's the good parts, here's the not so good parts.
Yeah. Fantastic. And that leads me on to another question. So as you've progressed in your own career, have you had role models around you, or people that you've learned a lot from?
Yes, is the answer to that. I think in every role I've been in, there's been somebody who I aspire to. And in fact, turned a couple of jobs down because I thought, I don't aspire to this person. Yeah. But a lesson that I've learned is I wish now I'd had a mentor earlier.
Okay.
What I would do is, you know, read all the books, and I used to take quite a lot of inspiration from sporting personalities, you know, and just in terms of their stories, and I still do that. I think if there's a conference or something on, and there's some key sports person going there, I'm always really inspired by, you know, what these people have gone through to get to where they are.
Taking that philosophy to business.
Yeah, and just kind of try to bring that into business. But I've never had, I have a mentor now, who's in London, and yeah, it's just really good sometimes to be able to pick the phone up and have somebody to just go blah to.
Yeah. And would you have any advice to people here that are maybe looking for a mentor or interested in finding a mentor as to how to go about that?
It's a bit like when some of my clients say they want a non-exec. The first thing I say to them is why? Because quite often people take non-execs on very early, and they cost you money. So, you know, make sure you know why you want a mentor. You know, so write down, this is what I want help with. Because often what happens is you see somebody who you go, oh, they seem to have done very well, but they might not have the skills to help your business. You know, so if somebody came to me and they were, I'm a shareholder in a software company, but if she'd come to me and said, you know, come and help me with the technology, I would have to run 100 miles. And then the other thing I always say, and it's like when being a business coach, I get introduced to lots of people, and luckily these days I get a lot of referrals, but I always have to have a coffee, and even better, a gin and tonic with people first, because it's like, you know, we need to have some chemistry. Because if we don't have chemistry, we won't get through the difficult times. So I would never take on a mentor that I didn't feel could almost be like a friend. Now, not a friend who's going to say nice things to you all the time, but somebody who you could open up to.
Because you're sharing so much. It's very personal.
If you don't share, you're not going to get anything. Yeah.
Okay. I have 2 more questions that I'm going to ask, and then what I'll do is open it up.
Sure.
If anyone else would like to ask questions. So, firstly, looking back, you know, to get to where you are now, and you know the stories that you've shared with us and the career that you've had, is there anything that looking back you would have changed or you would have done differently, Kai?
There's probably millions of things I should have done differently, and I've made more mistakes than successes, but I actually am not a regretful person. I kind of think what's happened's happened, and I don't want to look back and worry about that. So yeah, I was going to say kicked a few cats. I certainly haven't kicked any cats. You know what I mean? I've there's been tears and snotters at times, but I can't say that I've really thought I wouldn't do that. I'm happy with what I've done so far, and I'm hoping that I've still got lots to do.
Fantastic. And so we always ask our speakers for their top 3 tips for entrepreneurs and for the audience here in building a business. So what would those be from you tonight?
Well, I know the first one straight away, because as soon as I did this, things started to fly. So I always say surround yourself with talented people. And quite often people are worried about doing that because they might show you up. No, all they do is push you up. So I would say, you know, make sure that you know, look at your own weaknesses and say, you know, what have I not got, and get the match in, if you like. So yeah, surround yourself with talented people. I think I said this earlier. Look after those people, and they will look after your business. Back to the conversation we had earlier about the construction team. I could never have survived that horrible situation without my team. So, and you know, I didn't have to ask for it. And when I say look after them, clearly sometimes you need to beat people up. But you know, when I say look after them, find out what matters to them. And you know, I'd got a lot of females working for me, and they needed flexibility in their life. And I'm like, great, I'll give you flexibility, you give me something back. And so, you know, it's a two-way process. What else would I say?
I've got one more.
I'm very action-orientated. Not always the right action, but for me, it's the inaction that causes the problem. The
paralysis.
Yeah. People saying, I'm just waiting to see what's going to happen. I always think, no, don't wait, just get on with it. Okay. Has anybody seen the movie that's out just now, Darkest Night, Winston Churchill? Yeah. Isn't that amazing? I mean, he went through the most horrific times, but just kept going. If you haven't seen that film, I think it's a brilliant lesson in leadership. So yeah, for me, it's like, let's do something about it. Let's not wait and see.
Take action.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you. So I've asked lots of questions. We've had one from the floor, but would anyone else? Yep, Ben.
So on your point on paralysis, you meet lots of business owners that are trying to develop into something different, how do the business coach help them change their mindset into that direction?
It depends on the individual, because they all might be stuck for different reasons, if you like. Sometimes it's just about, clearly you need to get to know somebody, and sometimes they're stuck because something's happened that's caused fear of shifting. Something's happened recently or in their past life that just holds them back, and I always say, let's get to the source of this problem. And once you get to the source and they recognise that, you normally see them shift themselves. And that's what I love about coaching, because I was quite a good consultant. As you can imagine, I'm quite good at telling people what to do. I quite like telling people what to do. So coaching for me, I really had to change my style. And what I found in coaching is, because you truly believe that everybody has the answer in them, is that you facilitate them getting there rather than you say, I think you're wonderful, get on with it, because you're not going to believe that. So it really depends on the individual. Sometimes it's, if it's a group of people in business, what you need to look at is the dynamics, and it could be the dynamics that are causing the issue. I'm not quite sure I've answered that for you. Is that?
Good enough. Yes.
I'll think about it and maybe catch you later.
You mentioned chemistry, so in terms of building a team, it's great to look for somebody that you immediately connect with.
Mm-hmm.
However, how do you balance that with making sure that there is a broad enough skill set around? And then also with the altruistic nature of sometimes being part of a team, where you're not able to simply jettison someone because it's not quite working, that there's actually a working relationship that you have to work through. So how do you balance?
Let me do the chemistry thing first, then you might not need to remind me of the second question. When I talk about chemistry, what I'm not talking about is recruiting in my own image. That's the last thing you should do. I did a bit of that in the beginning, and that just caused me all sorts of nightmares, because I don't get on with me very well. No. So I don't think it's about recruiting in your own image. Yes, there's certain attitudinal and behaviours that I look for, but chemistry for me is, oh gosh, we were speaking to somebody about this the other day there, and we decided the best way, once you've interviewed somebody, to find out if you can work with them, because I'd said, isn't it about going to the pub or having a curry or something? They said, no, drive to Glasgow in the car with them and see how you feel when you get out the car. And I thought, that is brilliant, because if you can't have a good conversation for an hour, you're never going to work with somebody.
So that has nothing to do with Glasgow?
Nothing to do with Glasgow, no.
Maybe the enclosed space.
Our head office is Glasgow, so you could be driving to Edinburgh. It's just that kind of distance, You know when you're in a car with somebody and there's very little conversation and it's awkward. It's like, whereas somebody that you can just have a good chat with about anything, that's what I mean by chemistry. What was the second question?
So I think you've probably dealt with the middle part, but I was also thinking when you're actually in a team situation and you can't simply break that team or get rid of somebody, and how you deal with that kind of scenario of actually you having to be generous in your relationships, as well as looking for somebody that's just a straight fit.
That's tough. I'm not quite sure I'm getting this question. Are you saying that difficult situations where you might need to get rid of somebody from a team?
I suppose, but can't.
Why can't you?
Well,
oh, sorry, it's a situation you've got. Right.
Without getting into anything confidential.
Okay, so maybe we could have a chat afterwards, because I'll be hanging around. But you can always get rid of somebody, even if they're a shareholder. I have seen so many situations, and I don't mean get rid of them for the sake of it. I mean if there's a real reason to do it. And I often think that it's unhealthy for the organisation and sometimes that individual not to do it. So I'm pretty upfront about these things. I don't like doing it, and I've actually, on a number of occasions, I've cried when I've sacked somebody because they're really nice people, but they're just not right for the business. Can't believe I just admitted that. That was a long time ago. But yeah, you have to do it, because we had one guy who was a cancer in the business. I mean, he was just causing so many problems, and he was probably one of our top billers. But you have to cut that.
I think that's a really interesting point, because you said about being altruistic before, but sometimes maybe it's kinder to take the difficult action, and sometimes people might wait too long as well. Yeah. Is there any more questions? Is there any more questions? Craig?
Don't you dare! Don't you dare!
You must have worked with some real kind of basket case organisations, some consultants who work. Any stories you can share?
Without naming them.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh. Right, I can't talk about a Scottish business because I would hate anybody to know, but yes. When you say basket cases, I think every business is a basket case because we're all a bit mental sometimes, aren't we? But some people are just not meant to work together. And I worked with a company for a while. I moved to the London team with Sherloss because I wanted some different types of experiences. And I worked with an organisation where I just can't describe to you what it was like in the boardroom. And so my role, they brought me in to do leadership development because it was a fairly new board. And we had, in the beginning, punch-ups in the meeting. We had people walk out of the business and not come back for 2 weeks. You couldn't have written this. And it took us probably about 18 months because I wasn't the only person in there. This was a company that were scaling fast, and we're going to sell the business. So they kind of had a deadline. We got there in the end, and there's 2 of them still left in there. They bought the rest of them out, which I was really proud of because I never thought that sale would happen because these people were just so, I don't know, they were like children in a playground. But I can't tell you any other stories about Scotland because it's not good.
Because it's a small place sometimes.
Most of the time, and you come out of clients, you know, you're high-fiving your mirror. You're like, what a great day. I mean, I have the best job in the world. You know, dealing with people like you who are going through something incredible in your life in terms of your businesses. And, you know, I get to play with you on the way. So, you know, I love what I do. And when somebody gets a breakthrough, it is the best feeling in the world. It really is.
Okay. Well, I think that's been fantastic. I've learned so much, and I've just really enjoyed your talk and your openness. So thank you. I'd just like to hear a big thank you to Kai, and then I'm going to invite up Marlene after that. So thank you.
So some of you were here last month, and I was really, really nervous about standing up for my last thank you speech. I'm a bit more prepared this time. So first of all, to our sponsors, a little word about them. So we've got Scintilla. They provide patent and trademark advice with a particular focus on the tech sector. They are friendly, I promise, and approachable, and are always happy to have an initial chat without charge. Then we have ESS, who are a specialist recruiter based in Edinburgh, Glasgow and Bristol. Their core sectors are food, drink and FMCG, is that right? Yeah. Energy and high technology. As part of its commitment to supporting the growth of startups, they offer discounted fees to all startups, and they're always on hand to coach, mentor or advise startup businesses. Gillespie McAndrew, who I said wrong last time, said the name wrong. They're a full-service law firm that offer a wide range of advice. Then we've got 4Bytes, who are a software development company, and they aim to help people make good decisions about solving problems and creating innovative software solutions. We also want to give a big thank you to Product Forge, who have been doing all of our filming and live streams, so you will be able to see this later on and re-listen to all the great advice that Kai gave us. So Product Forge, they run hackathons that bring together developers, creatives and entrepreneurs to build new products that solve real-world problems. They also host live streams, as we know, for a range of technology, design and enterprise events, including exclusive interviews with startup founders and entrepreneurs. And then we would also like to give a nice big thank you to our featured attendees. So we've got Jessica Armstrong, Gerard, I can never say your name properly. Giroux. Don Lowe, Andy Johnston, and Marlene Lamhammer. And then thank you to Anne and Izetto for hosting us this month. It's been such a treat, and the pizza was superb. So good. And thanks to all of you for coming as well, and all of the amazing tweets everyone's been putting out throughout the event.
Fab wrap up. Thank you, Millie. And I should just say we're back here again. We're here, we're not here, but we're just over at Homebase. So next month we've got Richard Cooper, who is the CEO of Cascade Technologies, and is actually that, and is now doing various non-exec and advisory things. So we're going to learn a lot from him. And then in May, we've got Marlene up on stage, and she's going to be interviewing Dee Bradbury of Scottish Reprieve, which will be fantastic as well. So I hope to see you there. And she mentioned about the featured attendee. So if you're registering for an event, I don't know if you know, but you can actually click to feature yourself as that. And then it's actually a really nice way to facilitate networking as well, because people might have seen a bit about you and what you do before you come on. But that's probably enough for now, but we've still got more drinks, still got more food, and thank you again everyone, and thank you again Kay.